Before Wim Hof became known as the Iceman, before records, before laboratories and documentaries, there was loss. In the mid-1990s, Hof's wife, Olaya, died by suicide after years of mental health struggle. Suddenly, he was left alone with 4 children, in a grief that didn't come with instructions. What followed wasn't a search for fame, it was a search for a way to survive. Hoff has described those years as a time of profound darkness, walking for hours, pushing his body, stepping into cold water not as a stunt, but as a kind of anchor. The cold didn't comfort him, it didn't numb the pain, but it did something else. It forced him into the present moment, into breath, sensation and control, when everything else in his life felt uncontrollable. This wasn't a method yet, it was coping. Over time, Hoff noticed something unusual. The cold no longer overwhelmed him the way it once did. His breathing changed, his recovery changed, and slowly, what began as instinct turned into something more deliberate. A combination of cold exposure, controlled breathing, and mental focus. Years later, those practices would be named the Wim Hof Method. But at the start, there was no system, only repetition and resilience. As Hof continued, the feats began to attract attention. Ice immersions lasting far longer than expected, exposure to freezing temperatures with minimal protection, endurance challenges that seemed to defy conventional limits. To some, he looked reckless. To others, he looked like someone accessing a capacity we don't usually train. What's important here is intent. Hoff didn't frame his work as conquering nature. He framed it as reconnecting, using discomfort to rebuild trust in the body after emotional collapse. That context matters, because without it, the story becomes spectacle. With it, the story becomes human. The turning point came when scientists became involved. In controlled studies, researchers observed that Hoff, and later people trained in his techniques, could voluntarily influence physiological responses once thought to be automatic. Stress hormones increased on command. Inflammatory responses were dampened under specific conditions. These findings didn't validate every claim made about the method, but they did challenge long-held assumptions about the limits of human regulation, enough to raise eyebrows, enough to keep the conversation going. As the method spread globally, so did debate. Supporters describe improved resilience, focus, and emotional regulation. Critics point out that personal experience doesn't equate universal proof, and that not all results are consistent across studies. Both positions can be true at once, because science often moves this way, not in leaps but in tension. There is no evidence strong enough to confirm every claim associated with Wim Hof, and no explanation complete enough to dismiss why his approach continues to produce meaningful results for some people. And perhaps that's the heart of the story. Not cold records, not viral clips, but a man who lost everything and rebuilt himself by stepping, again and again, into something difficult, until difficulty stopped owning him. And if this is something you ever consider exploring yourself, it's worth doing so thoughtfully, with proper research and medical advice, not as a challenge, but as a choice. Wim Hof's breakthrough years weren't about becoming superhuman, they were about staying human when life tried to take that away. And whether his methods represent a revolution or a work still in progress, they began where many real breakthroughs do, in pain, in persistence, and in the quiet decision to keep going.